These are all the different polishes that we've used this week. We have 105, 205, this staple for DIYers, for professionals, for pretty much the entire industry, right?
Yeah.
So we have 205 finishing, 105 cutting, then we have the more professional stuff, and so I want you guys to talk a little bit about 101 and 100, and we talked a little bit, if you watched the whole series, talked about microfiber versus wool, and you have a preference there, but really those are designed for foam, right? Yeah. Isn't that what they were designed for? And then of course we had used some Jescar, used some Sonex Perfect Finish, we used some Maguire Menzerna SF4000, which they call something else now, and I can't keep straight. So why Maguires? I mean, why is that your go-to for the process? So if you could talk to me a little bit, start with 100 and kind of work your way up.
Sure. Basically, we'll switch this around here in tier 101 being the strongest, 100 being kind of the little brother of M101. These are more solvent-based products, very high cutability, but if finished properly, they finish down.
So what the heck does solvent mean? Solvent would be chemical instead of water? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It has more of a chemical, but it also has water. But, without getting too technical, because I'm not a chemist, these two products, one being the compound, one being polished, these were the products that really set the industry on fire. And then this came along, and then the long strip DAs really set the
So
industry.
105, 205 came out, and then they came out with, did they come out with like D300 at the same time as the microfiber pads? Was that a system?
It was a system, exactly.
Right.
Designed for the quick in and out, very easy, where someone that never polished could take that and come up with really great results without really any skill set.
But, so why wouldn't we use D300? I mean, is this just from experience? Have you guys, I'm assuming you've tried all that stuff.
I personally think utilizing 205, 100, and 101, those are the only three products that I actually use. In our industry, it is heavily saturated with so many different products that it confuses everybody, sometimes even the pros. So you could just imagine what consumers and do-it-yourselfers go through.
Right.
I've just found that this kind of simplifies the entire process for me, and because myself and Jay, we travel all over the country detailing cars, and we never know where we're going to be. For us, we could show up with one of these four compounds. I usually take three. I take 205, 100, and 101, and you can detail anything from a minivan to a Bugatti Veyron and anywhere in between.
So what you're saying is it's okay, like I always feel like, man, I'm not a pro, I'm not pro grade because I only use like 2 or 3 polishes. I've got 30 of them in my cabinet, but I'm using like if I were to go and do someone's car, I would take 3 of them.
I think that's where everybody in the industry kind of gets lost, where they think that you need all of these fancy pads and a arsenal of polishes in order to get the job done, and that's what dictates if you're a professional or a do-it-yourselfer. But when you really get back down to the nitty-gritty and actually see what actually works for you and focus on 2, 3, 4 main products within your personal process, you'll be a lot better off, and inevitably you won't spend as much money.
Right, so you'll come up with, you'll be able to dilute or adjust, and we talked a little bit about you were adding 205 to 101.
And that's because I force myself to only be constrained to 3 of these products. I really try to be able to focus on what the capabilities of each one of these products can do.
Become an expert with
really
it.
Correct.
Extracting everything that the polishes, and you can do that with the Jescar. Just pick a product, understand exactly from the start to the finish what it's doing within that time.
Yeah, see, I detected there was no sense of you guys scoffing at me because I liked Jescar. That's what I used, and because I was such a fan of FG400, and I feel like Jescar correction compound's an improvement on that.
They're all great products. I mean, it's to the level now where the technology, and we're talking abrasive set, where the abrasive set has the idea and the technologies have really, it was before the paint was more technologically sound than the compounds. Now with the invention of 105 and 205 really set everybody, everybody had to catch up.
Right. All right, so 101, 101 with wool?
You can use 101 with wool, 101 with microfiber.
Or no, 101 is what you guys would traditionally use with microfiber.
Correct. That would be the traditional.
So cutting, heavy cutting, got to be careful because it's solvent based and it heats up quicker, right?
Sure.
So that's why we need to be, I don't want to say careful,
aware,
but
be
cautious.
aware.
Yeah, be aware of that. So 101 versus 105, it's going to dust less because of the solvent and it's going to heat up quicker?
Not necessarily. And again, a lot of this stuff is paint dependent when it comes down to it. And let me give you
I hate it when you say that. I just want the answer.
But it's so true. I wish if there was a true formulation and system that we could implement on every single type of make and model of car, everybody would be able to do what we all strive to do on a daily basis.
Right.
And I'll give you an example when it comes to sometimes 100 will actually cut better than 101 depending on the paint. So my go-to when it comes to actually starting a car is, depending on what service it's getting, I'll start with 205, see what we could get for defect removal with that. But then if, because of either the budget as well as the amount of defects, sometimes I'll jump up to 100 or I'll just jump to 101. Again, watching how each one of these products, when I'm dialing it in, is moving on the actual panel.
So 101 cuts, like just to say the same microfiber pad, 101 will cut more than 100?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, it has more physical abrasive in it.
On certain things though, because 100 was designed for fresh paint. So if body shops 205 100 we would recommend, but for the regular paint correction specialist 205 100 and 101. So if you were to cut a freshly painted panel, 100 you would get more oomph from it than 101 because of the workability and the way that the paint is actually in the timeline of its birth from the gun.
So what are my odds of screwing up the paint royally using those 100, 101?
You can.
Yeah.
You can. This is definitely a safer approach.
Are we talking about with fresh paint?
No, I'm talking about like a 6-month-old M3.
Sure,
you know,
of course, yeah.
Versus say Jess Car or FG400 or what are some other common? Just pick a common compound. Would you classify 101, 100 as more cut, you need to be more sophisticated to use those than some of the other?
You need to be careful. Where this has a longer working cycle, it's more wet polish.
So is that the diminishing part of, I don't want to get on a whole diminishing versus non-diminishing tangent, but is that the diminishing part of most, I would call them simpler. Actually, the Meguiar's is simpler. The others are a bit more sophisticated as far as breaking down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
This would be for an amateur or someone that's not polished a whole lot, this may be a better route. But at the same time, we polished yesterday. I used the Jess Car system on that black hood and I got great results. But I used it as if I was using this system. So again, it all boils down to watching your product.
Right. So a Jess Car and then just like Sonex Cut Max or something like that, you would classify those are a little less chance of screwing something up than 100, M100.
Yeah, just because how they are made. You know, the ingredients in it, it's got a little more working time, diminishing abrasive. So just that little bit will help the end user.
All right, so then, 105 has been so popular, and some people still, they swear by 105.
It's still a great product, absolutely.
Why 100 over that for you?
It's just a preference,
Yeah.
really, for the types of vehicles that we work with and how we've really honed our skills when it comes to the 205, 100, and 101 regimen.
It boils down to just the sheer preference. The end user, if they understand the process, and I give a compound or a polish to Andy, and I don't label it, I just give it to him, he could figure out how to use it.
So another question for you. I've got all these, just to say the Rupes pad, for example. I know you guys use Lake Country, your Rupes, whatever, or Buff and Shine. they've kind of all adopted a pretty similar color scheme, right, in most cases. So you have, so I'm talking foam here, so we have cutting foam, so we have orange foam, blue foam, green foam, yellow foam. So let's just say we have a cutting foam pad, we have a medium polish foam pad, we have like a yellow pad, which would be a polish foam pad, and then you have a finishing foam pad. How do you decipher that crap? Do you guys, or do you have, like in my toolbox, I've got a yellow and a white, so a ultra finishing and I guess a finishing pad, and those are all I intend to use. Is that wrong? I mean,
no, that's not, because again, you're simplifying the process for yourself with depending on what types of vehicles you're working on. And just like I have sectioned out the compounds and polishes that I use to my go-to 3, the 205, 100, and 101, I tried to only be able to use maybe 2 or 3 pads. I always cut with microfiber.
What about wool?
I always finish with foam. Personally, I don't use wool. Given the cars that I work on, I'm not dealing with yanking out 400 grit scratches, 600 grit scratches like the custom body shop guys do. I am a paint correction specialist that deals with a lot of new car preps and being able to yank out those types of defects. So
where does a rotary fit into it for you, Andy? Because
I very rarely have to use a rotary, and that's just because of the tremendous leaps and bounds with technological advances on the dual action machine side that even Jay will tell you, 95% of the jobs that he does, besides the Riddler and the Pebble Beach Concourse jobs, he's able to utilize, be able to utilize the DA. And let's just go back to when I was forced to take out his heavy-handed 400 grit Scotch-Brite marks. It took me quite some time, in about 6 or 7 cycles of 101, in order to even make a dent in it and then begin to remove them. But we accomplished it. So that's a true testament to the path that all of these dual action polishers are going with the amount of power that they do have.
So you're me, or maybe a couple of steps below me, as far as experience with a polisher, and you shouldn't feel left out if you're not rotoring with
Absolutely not. No.
You can get the job done with a Rupes, an LHR15 ES or a Mark II.
It doesn't honestly matter. I mean, the only time I pull out a rotary is if I'm sanding a car. Like we did that hood, that spot on that hood where we really got all the orange peel. I'm only using the rotary and wool and compound, and then from that point, it goes on the shelf, and I use the Rupes and the microfiber pad, or I may not even need that. I may go straight to a finish pad in 205.
Do you ever finish with a finishing microfiber pad? All these companies have them. I've never actually seen anybody use them. I mean,
I have before, but personally, because of my specific process that I feel comfortable with, I always cut with microfiber and then always finish with a foam pad.
Sometimes you can finish with a microfiber, but I feel that I just have, instead of fighting it, I'll just do a great cut with a little bit of marring, like we saw in the black hood. We were able to adjust it by blowing out the debris and going back without adding any product, which is great, a good thing to have in your arsenal. But me personally, I'd rather, instead of just working it and trying it and wasting time, I would rather just go with a foam pad.
So I guess I also learned over this past couple of days why they sell this stuff in the gallons, because you guys use more product than than I've ever thought or been taught, or so why more product?
Well,
lubrication,
again, it varies between paint, where sometimes, as you and Levi were working on this side of the GMC hood?
GMC hood.
Where it didn't like having the pad that was saturated with a lot of product, and the paint actually liked it where the ratio of microfiber to product was less than a saturated pad with product in it. And it all goes back down to what Jay was saying. You need to be so focused in and watching the product and how it moves on a specific type of paint.
And I think that's part of, everybody wants to be able to go grab a polisher, and we're kind of sharing all of these industry secrets, right? But it comes down to, I have more time under a polisher than most DIY guys. and I still feel like I have like 10% of the information that I need, or not the information, but the time, under the machine to figure out what reacts to what. So I think it still makes a strong case for, even though we're sharing all this stuff, why you would take your car to a professional.
Absolutely, and one of the big things that a lot of both do-it-yourselfers, weekend warriors, and professionals ask myself or Jay is kind of, oh, what's your secret to basically working on this level of car and honing your skills? And it's very simple. Just keep polishing. The more cars that you polish, the better you get at the skill. The more cars that you polish, the more customers you get, and the more referrals you get, and the more business you get. So just keep polishing, really, it is.
You have the business side and you have the craftsmanship side. And that could be a whole nother 10 podcasts, because a lot of detailers, and I was guilty myself, you get so honed in on absolute perfection that you lose the business side of it.
Yeah.
And so there is a balance between the business side, the craftsman side, and making the customer happy without going overboard. Some customers only, a one-step is perfectly fine with them.
Yeah.
A polish and a coating or a wax, and they're happy as a clam.
Yeah, and I have that tendency at times, that, if my car's all scratched up, I'll break out the compound, but a lot of times, a new car, a one-step, either a 205 or a Sonex Perfect Finish or something. We talked a little bit about, and it's hard to notice on camera, but notice the difference between a 205 and a Perfect Finish that there are, and I bet you we'd get a different result finishing down with the SF4000 over there.
100%.
Yeah, so what is, we talked a little bit about filling, and I know things that I think are buzzwords that really probably don't even need to exist are filling and then soft and hard paint, right? Everybody wants to quantify that. Is it filling or not filling? What's your take on, 205 filling? What?
Well, like we were talking about off camera, is that anything that you put onto a surface when you're polishing inevitably fills. It doesn't matter whether it's meant to fill or it's not meant to fill, because the pores of the paint are similar to pores of our skin. Just like Jay was saying, if you put lotion in your hand, it's going to be absorbed. So when it comes to filling versus non-filling, you could argue that for months on end, and you're going to be at the exact same spot where that you were when you started. So
what's the disadvantage of filling? Is it the bond with the last step? What's the problem?
Honestly,
who cares if it does?
Well, besides the technical side of it, I believe it's more of just a professional detailer bragging rights kind of thing. Is, oh, well, I don't use filler products or stuff like that. Wouldn't you tend to agree? Yeah, it's kind of beating your chest and
cheating. It's looked at as cheating.
It's looked at as kind of a form of cheating.
I just want the paint to look good.
Absolutely, and at the end of the day, that's all that the customer cares about. They just want their car looking great.
So if I fill it, so I use Perfect Finish or a 205, I'm filling, does the fill go away? Is that the issue?
Paint dependent. I've seen cars where I've used,
evaporation, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, and really it comes down to the end user just applying a small amount of polish, working the polish in, watching the heat, watching the product. Everything boils back to the technician using the product within the manufacturer's parameters, but we take it 20 steps higher than what the manufacturer recommends. But just using the product within the realm, that's why they have directions on the back, will get you a great result.
So you guys know, most of the people that have developed these products. Do they are they just slapping some stuff together, or is there like real testing and real
hardcore testing behind it? Yes.
Years and years of testing with all products.
And then they go back, they get it in the hands of guys like you, and then you go back to them and say this or that.
And then we destroy it, and we tell them.
Find out capabilities of it that they necessarily might have not even have known existed. Or intended it to be.
Now, and just sort of wrapping up this segment, machines. What we used a lot of. Were we using the 21 or the 15?
Using the 21. Rupus 21.
So 21 with a 5-inch pad generally.
5-inch backing plate.
That's your go-to.
That's my go-to.
finishing, which I'm interested in, is the Duetto, the 12 millimeter.
Sure, and again, not recommended for right out of the box for how I basically took it and modified it, but that's just for the situations that I run into and the cars that I work on. It seems to be the most systematic, methodical way to be able to get a consistent result on every.
So that was a Duetto, which is a 12 millimeter orbit with a 6-inch backing plate, which would slow it down a little more, and a 7-inch pad.
A 7-inch pad, and then I take the head, the actual casing of that machine off. So personally, I feel that I have more grip when getting into certain areas.
And then obviously the 3-inch, the Mini, is a staple, right?
It is. It's a staple for me. My go-tos when it comes to cutting is long throw 21 Mark II, and then the LHR 75 electric Mini, and then for finishing is always a short throw DA.
So tell me about what is. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
The 3-inch also has been modified.
The 3-inch has also been modified as well.
So hybrid versus, I see all these fancy extensions to put 1-inch pads or 2-inch pads on a 21. What's the deal there? Help me out with that.
I think it's more of just, being able to have the capability to get into areas, nooks and crannies that all detailers really sort of fixate on.
What happens when the force pulls you back, your foot naturally comes off the gas. You have to keep your foot to the floor, to the floor, to the floor.